You're listening to the Soju Sessions, episode 77 on the SojuTalk Nation podcast feed. I'm your host, Crispy, also known as Crispy Wonton or simply just Anton. And on today's episode, Ervtron joins the show, kind of a man of mystery on the server, but he is an OG. He has been listening to the main show since episode 62. He references Hot Take Harold and that amazing section. He actually sent in some a take to be discussed, and he felt very much a part of the community. And I thought that was pretty cool that we went back in time and talked about that episode. Also an OG on the server. He is a SojuTalk veteran, but he admits that he is more of a fly on the wall, kind of just taking it all in and kind of enjoying K-pop at a bit of a distance, but also just still having a breadth of knowledge and a perspective that is very deep, very insightful, and very illuminating for me as far as getting to hear his perspective on things. So just super amazing, cool dude all around. And he is also a kindred spirit as far as going to concerts, all the concerts. Just big shout out to him. We talk about some hipster music, CRAXY, Billlie a little less hipster, but we go pretty deep on Billlie. We're big fans of Billlie over here. I'm a big fan of Billlie. Just all good vibes, all good stuff, man. Let's get into it. Coming up, my chat with Ervtron on CRAXY and Billlie on the Soju Sessions. Joining Soju Sessions, someone who's a bit of a mystery, kind of quiet on the server, but has been on the server for a good 2 years now, I think. He's a SojuTalk veteran, the one and only Ervtron. Welcome to the show, sir.
Hey, thanks for having me. Good to be on.
Yeah, man. I'm just kind of going through the Gochu gang to see, who haven't I had on yet. And your name is near the top of the list alphabetically. So it stood to reason that I ask you on for this week. And, K-pop has been kind of all over the place the past couple of weeks as far as, the crew just coming back, recapping like 20 songs this past week. And then today, it is Sunday, September 11th. Doug put up a poll for songs that are like 3 weeks old to be talked about on the upcoming show. So I figured, you know what? We're just gonna hang out and talk about life and maybe talk about some songs that are a little older, but I think all these songs are gonna be a lot of fun today. But before we get started on music, I gotta ask, Ervtron, what is your K-pop origin story? We need to get to know you, man. This is the first time of me actually talking to you. So what are your first memories of K-pop, and how did you get into it?
A K-pop origin story. All right. So first and foremost, my musical interest definitely spans a little bit like everywhere. I'm a big metalhead. Grew up listening to a lot of metal, a lot of rock, heavier stuff. And also at some point got really into just radio pop. Really loved Kesha, 303, all that kind of stuff back in the day, like later 2010s. And then it just transitioned into like YouTube recommendations and the algorithm kind of like shifting me to a little bit more obscure stuff until one day it randomly just threw me into Crazy by 4 Minute. And that kind of like, that was my first introduction to anything K-pop related ever. And I kind of, from afar, was like, okay, this is cool. Like, yeah, this beat goes hard. This is cool. I can't really understand it, but this is pretty good. And I was into a lot of EDM, trap stuff. This is probably like 2000, 15 ish. And, being that year, I was following what Skrillex was doing and interested in the songs he was doing, and heard that he was releasing a song with that K-pop group that I had first heard of. So when he released Hate with 4 Minute, that kind of just like spiraled me. So I was like, oh my God, the song is crazy. This beat goes hard. This group is badass. And I just deep dove on them and then just spiraled out of control with it. And that's pretty much like the origin story of that.
See, your 2010s is amazing. First of all, that 2010s for me was also kind of a wild time. Very much into EDM, trap, dubstep. Kind of when all that stuff was peaking. Kind of my favorite, one of my favorite DJs of that time was RL Grime. So kind of what dubstep kind of spun off into trap, and then it was a lot of RL Grime kind of everywhere. So I know exactly kind of that trajectory of like finding something and then looping it back into what is now K-pop. So as you got into K-pop, as you found K-pop through Skrillex, like the definition of dubstep in like 2010 was like Skrillex at the very early stage. How did you kind of spin that off into finding other groups? And did you find groups that had similar sounds, or were you kind of experimental? You kind of tried different sounds and different styles?
At first, it was definitely like, give me anything that's like dubstep or like trap based stuff with K-pop. I mean, Skrillex released that song with G Dragon and CL, which was really crazy, which like kind of like solidified my interest. And then from there, I guess I opened up my horizons a little bit with like some a little bit different sounding stuff. I got really into EXID at the time. BTS was releasing some of their older stuff, like I think like I Need You came out around then. What else was going on? Red Velvet was like debuting, and Ice Cream Cake was around the beginning of me listening to K-pop, which I got really interested in. So there was a lot of different genres that I started getting into once I kind of got past the, I would say, like initial wall of being interested in the genre rather than a specific group. But yeah, 4 Minute definitely got me into that like harder EDM based stuff, which ended up making me really interested in CLC. I would say was like big for me around then too, with especially when they shifted, kind of had that genre shift, that concept shift.
You just named a bunch of groups that I particularly love. The fact that they're all a bit experimental, a bit different. Even though they're from big companies and big names, I think Red Velvet is the one that really stood out to me. It's like, yes, early days Red Velvet, right? And just for full disclosure for like everyone listening, this is legitimately like the first time I've talked to you. And it's very fitting that we're going to talk about two groups that are a little bit odd, a little bit off kilter, that kind of fit this weirdness in musical styles that in a lot of ways evoke like a mid 2010s experimentation within music, right? So perfect guest. I don't know how I did this. I don't know how you did this. It's just all the things came together really well.
Now I was excited when you wanted to talk about them because I am self-proclaimed like Nugu girl group stan. So CRAXY is definitely a group that I've kind of been like, all right, I'm here to support them, but I haven't really dove into their stuff. And yeah, I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, no, it's so it turned out so well, man. I'm just like I gotta host. I gotta focus. All right. So with music, kind of like finding music, it's a communal experience, right? Did you have a community or a group of friends that you kind of bounced off ideas with and recommendations to kind of grow your knowledge of K-pop as you were kind of going through it in the mid 2010s?
Not at all. No one in my life at all. Which jumping forward a little bit is kind of how I ended up here. But I did do my best to spread my influence to my group of friends and try to like introduce them to stuff. And I sort of tried to get them down the same rabbit hole that I was in. Like, well, you guys like dubstep, you guys like EDM, listen to this Skrillex X K-pop song. Like, it's really cool. And some of them bit, some of them didn't. And now so more so, I do have a pretty good group of friends in real life who like I do get to go to concerts with and share new releases with, which is really cool. But back in the day, I would say like even just 2 or 3 years ago, it was like really hard to find people to connect with one-on-one to talk about it.
What was that turning point with your friends that they started to listen to more K-pop? Not necessarily accept it, but kind of understand what it was, and that they genuinely started to have interest in K-pop. Because for a lot of new fans, it's pretty daunting. I mean, there's just a lot of music out there. It's a different culture, just a different set of guidelines and expectations as far as what it means to be an engaged fan. What was that moment for you and your friends that you realized like, oh, okay, I think they get it now?
Well, I think there's a really big difference between somebody who will tolerate it in the background or let it go on a playlist or something, and somebody who will like actively say they're a fan or engage in it. And I think that turning point from my friend group was getting them to, either at a party or in like a social setting or just hanging out, being able to like watch some music videos and seeing the production value, seeing the choreography, seeing everything that actually goes into the whole package of K-pop rather than just the actual songs themselves. Because really, I mean, I think when you boil K-pop down, you can't really say it's just the song. It's really like a package that's presented, right? So I think like selling people on more than just the music is kind of like the key to getting them to like open up, their open up a little bit more to it and like look at it more kind of as like an experience and like a visual, something visual to consume as well as like the music and all that kind of stuff. So definitely took a bit of repetition and forcing down my friends for a bit, but yeah, a lot of them are very into it. I would say that some of them are like equally as into it as I am now, and like I said, regularly hit me up for shows or grab albums when they go to Target or something.
That's amazing. Yeah, no, K-pop is it's very multidimensional, right? As far as the medium, the art form, and what you're consuming, right? I know we just mentioned this, the fact that you have to kind of actively engage into K-pop to kind of get that experience. It's very different than Western music, right? Or just like any other music that is more visible to us here in the United States. So what concerts have you gone to with your friends? And then what albums, like what notable albums have you seen them purchase that like really sparked your curiosity? It's like, oh wow, that happened. Like I didn't know that they were so into this. So 2 parts: concerts and
Okay.
what albums do you remember your friends getting that kind of surprised you?
Sure. My first K-pop concert was Blackpink in 2019. Went to see them further. It was Newark, New Jersey, but I guess it was technically their New York date. That was cool. We got floor seats or floor standing, and we're basically like front row for Blackpink. So that was probably something I'll never be able to experience again.
Yo,
But
2019.
Yeah.
Man,
Back when it was like easy-ish to get tickets, and they weren't.
Yeah,
I
that was like the
freaking out
start.
like I am now.
Yeah, God, look
And
at you.
that same month, I saw Twice for their I don't remember the name of the tour, but it was the one that I think Amina was absent for.
I want to say it's Twice Lights.
Yes, that is it.
Okay.
Twice Lights. Same deal for Twice Lights. Saw that, and then obviously like nothing really happened over most of like the bulk of COVID. And then this summer has been kind of back on the concert grind. I saw Brave Girls, which was really cool.
Let's go.
I saw Dreamcatcher, Luna, Pixie, Alexa, and Rolling Quartz.
Holy smokes. Your lineup of concerts it's remarkable. You are such an OG. This is amazing. I'm just like thinking about all the groups.
I'm trying to get around.
No, and you're killing it. You're doing freaking amazing. I guess like what what are some of your favorite memories as far as like most recent concerts? Because I know there's been a rush of just like every group is touring right now, but did you have like that one moment where like, yes, this is why we're here? It doesn't necessarily have to be like a song moment or like the groups by itself, but just an experience, a moment at the concert with people.
No, absolutely, I got it. I went to OTAKON to see Pixie, Alexa, and Rolling Quartz. We got VIP for Pixie, and we ended up getting front row for the concert for the three of them. And then we did a meet and greet with Pixie where I got to like meet all of them, do like high touch, talk to all of them for a little bit, get signatures and stuff. We played Red Light, Green Light, and with like the whole group for the meet and greet. It was just really fun. It was just like hanging out with them for like an hour, really like close and personally. And Pixie has kind of solidified themselves as one of my favorite groups recently, sort of all around Otakon. So that was like definitely the coolest moment for a concert so far. I'm still kind of living at the high on that, you know.
You were definitely carrying the title of the hipster girl group listener. Like, Pixie is like your old group right now. It's like, yep, definitely the hipster, which is fantastic. I freaking love that.
Someone's got to support them.
For real. Like the smaller groups got to get some love too, even though they're probably not talked about or noticed or get any votes during voting for SojuTalk. But at the same time, I think
that's wrong.
Right? Just come on. We need a Nugu section. Even if it's just like a one-off, Doug mentions it in the list, which he does a pretty good job of doing it, but at the same time, a little bit more. Otakon, great. I did see some of the news for that and just Alexa posting about it. I love the fact that there's this like intersection between like anime and K-pop, and anime conventions are now a place where K-pop artists can actually go and they will bring a crowd. How was that? Just like being in two worlds that were always in parallel to each other in a lot of ways, like the introduction to a lot of people for one genre or the other. And then just like being around people again to kind of celebrate at a convention. Take me through Otakon for you.
I could talk about it forever. Otakon was like, it was just crazy. I'm just sort of like a casual anime fan. I watched maybe one or two a year. I know the big stuff, but I'm not going to go out of my way to go to an anime convention typically. But when I saw like the list of K-pop groups and Alexa going, I'm like, all right, it's only in DC. It's an hour and a half drive from me. There's no way I can like pass up going to that. Even if like, even if there's no crazy VIP or no meet and greets, like it'll be just cool to be around and be around that community. I was overwhelmed there with how much they got K-pop involved. It almost felt like K-pop became like one of the main things there because there were panels on it. You had Alexa doing panels. You had Pixie and Rolling Quartz doing panels. They were judging dance contests. There were every day there was like a random dance event or a random dance panel, like all over the place. They would go until 2 a.m. All sorts of different concepts. It's like everywhere you go, you could find something to do if you're a K-pop fan. It was really cool. There were a lot of shops on the exhibit hall that were selling albums. All of the groups also had their own merch, like signature, like I guess like limited edition merch. Pixie was selling one of a kind photo cards, or not photo cards, but Polaroids.
Right?
Yeah. Polaroids signed by them, just like a book full of them that they just took for Otakon. So you like can't pass up on stuff like that. So yeah, every corner you turned in Otakon, it was like K-pop here, random dances in the hallways. It was cool. And then the groups ended up cosplaying, I think, Saturday as well.
What is this world that does not exist anywhere else? All right, you said some things that have just blown my mind because I've been going to anime conventions since 2010, and I just love the environment. I feel like for the most part, anime conventions have a certain way of doing things that look kind of different than just like a culture festival or a K-pop related event. So they kind of go all out, and it makes a lot of sense that Well, Otakon's kind of an older convention as well, so that they would allow their K-pop guests to booth and to do things. Because I will call this out, KCON, supposedly the convention for all K-pop in LA, did not have any booths with like artist specific things.
Okay, I have to ask because I assume that you've been to KCON.
Yeah.
Is the actual con of KCON an actual convention from somebody who's been to anime conventions?
Yes, in the very general sense. So it takes place on a convention floor. There's exhibits like everywhere. There's a lot of advertisements for just things from Korea that you could buy. There was booths for specific groups that were funded by the company, if that makes sense. So like Kepler, right? Kepler had their own like special booth where it was all about like candy and stuff. And then I think it was like Kepler and TL1. But then outside of that, there wasn't very much of like what you would think of as an anime convention stuff. There was no like, there was a very small like market that kind of looked like Artist Alley, but was like just a couple shops selling things. Maybe like, I would say like 2 rows worth of things that you could buy. And then after that, there was just a lot of empty space. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a few stages where they brought out idols throughout the weekend to do a talk, do a dance, just to showcase something really quick. Nothing longer than maybe 30 minutes of them just appearing and hanging out with all the attendees. But I would say as a convention, not much to do. You're kind of just waiting for the next thing to happen and then trying to get as close as possible, but then everyone's trying to get as close as possible. So you're fighting the crowds in that sense. So yeah, as a convention, not great, but no, your experience at Otakon with anime plus these idols is kind of amazing. So shout out to you, man.
It's really cool. I mean, it's making me want to go to Otakon again because I don't know what their plan is next year, but I have to assume the K-pop went over well and they'll do it again.
Yeah.
And also on top of that, something interesting, you mentioned that anime conventions are willing to dive into K-pop. Immediately after the Otakon performance, Pixie announced they were going to be doing Anime Weekend Atlanta as well in October.
Jeez, man.
So they're doing the anime convention gauntlet.
God. Well, it does make, yeah, I guess smaller groups, it makes a lot more sense, right? If you're able to find a show that's going to host you, then it's really just about the fandom being able to support. And I think, God, that's the play. God, that's crazy. Yeah. That is the play. You're right.
When I tell you like Pixie, Alexa, and Rolling Quartz, you're probably not thinking that it would draw like the craziest crowd or that it would be like a packed theater or anything, but I was so impressed that 1, all the VIPs sold out for all groups, and 2, the line, I mean, the place filled up and capped out before they even opened the doors to get in. And I just like had a conversation with so many people online who were printing out fan chant banners, happy birthday things for one of the Pixie members. There was people in line giving out albums to people who didn't have them if they wanted to try to get them signed. It was such a cool community, and I wasn't expecting it for all these sort of like more unknown groups, but it was one of the coolest things.
God, that sounds amazing. God, man, I get now. I'm just like I need to go back to the anime world convention kind of stuff. I didn't go to Fanime this year, just in the Bay Area. It's one of the larger ones, and then Anime Expo, I've just quit going altogether because cannot do that one for a lot of reasons. Yeah, I do feel like there's a bit of a difference with the community and crowd at an anime convention, and the way that it draws, especially if there are smaller K-pop groups. No, wow, I really can't like wrap my head around like how amazing an event like that would be. I gotta experience that. So yes, thank you for the FOMO, much appreciated.
No problem.
Well, so speaking of community and kind of people being kind to each other, giving gifts and albums and really looking out for each other, How have you found community as far as being a K-pop fan? I know that you didn't have your friends group in real life for quite some time until fairly recently, in 2019. How was it for you kind of finding community online and then finding spaces to talk about K-pop, to learn more about K-pop? And then in so doing, how'd you find SojuTalk?
Yeah. Um, I don't know. I want to say that for a while I didn't have a community, except for the people that I was close to and would kind of talk their ear off a little bit and kind of beat them down with, oh, did you guys see CLC is doing this? They're releasing this song, and they're like, oh yeah, cool, cool, cool. We don't care. And I would just keep kind of beating people to death with stuff they don't care about until I finally am like, you know what? There's got to be other people who are talking about this stuff that I can like bounce ideas off of or get some validation from. So that's sort of where I transitioned into looking. I think I just looked on Spotify for K-pop podcasts, just anything that was maybe talking about K-pop or had maybe talking about specific groups or releases or anything. And I listened to a handful of different ones, and some of them for a while, and then they died off or they were new and kind of fizzled out. SojuTalk was one that I sort of mixed in there and was listening to a little bit here and there. And that was probably around episode like 45 to 50, I want to say. And then the show kept evolving so well that I kind of just became one of those like, all right, well, I don't need to listen to like 6 different podcasts a week when SojuTalk's kind of like giving me my wrap up, and they're doing a pretty good job of covering most of the things that I would miss, and they're kind of like talking about the songs that I would like and giving me a little bit of validation or challenging some of my opinions sometimes. So that's definitely the first place where I found like a sense of conversation sort of and community. And which, ultimately led me to joining the Discord. Though I'm not super active in chatting, I do always check on, people's thoughts and feelings about songs and what's going on. And I check group news and all that kind of stuff, just because I still don't have a super tight group of people who are on top of everything. And there's so much news going on every day and with so many different groups and so much happening that it's cool to have found a server where there's like so much attention to detail on all the different facets of K-pop that it's like I can kind of catch up anytime, any day in my free time. So definitely have found a strong community to get myself involved with.
Yeah, man, I'm glad you found SojuTalk. Yeah, because they do a really nice job of building that relationship with the audience, bringing us into kind of who the crew are, Doug, Warren, and Anita, kind of their friendship as well. So I think they do a nice job of welcoming people, talking about K-pop in a way that's pretty accessible, and like very, very happy that they are able to cover so many songs every week. Especially this past week where they did like 6 songs. Like, shout out to them.
Dude, I felt bad.
It was so many. Going back to go ahead.
I was just gonna say a funny little side story about when I started listening. They were still doing the Hot Takes with Harold segment then, and they were like asking for submissions from people. And I remember my first memory of like anything actually like interacting with anyone was I sent in an email where I basically just bashed rapping in general in in the K-pop industry, and they just had like a really long tangent on the segment about it, and it was funny. It kind of got me wrapped up in the episode a little bit, and I would say probably a little more like tied to the podcast moving forward, because I was like, oh, cool, they're talking about the thing I emailed in, and Warren agrees and Doug doesn't, and they're talking about it for 15 minutes, and it was just a really funny segment.
Nice. Do you remember the details of the email that you sent?
Yeah, I told them that there are I told them that there are a lot of groups who would be better if they didn't force a member into a rap position.
I vaguely remember this hot takes episode. Yes. Okay.
It was episode 62 where they talked about it.
Gee, you got the number. All right. All right.
Yeah, I had to like double check her, like, because I was like trying to remember exactly where I started listening. So I dove into my email and dug that up earlier. But yeah, I pretty much said that like there are some groups that don't need a rapper, and you know, it's hurting them by throwing a member, you know, the English speaking member or the Maknae into the rap position when they could just, you know, no rap, it'll sound better. Warren was like, yeah, I 100% agree. We don't need more bad rappers in the idol industry.
No, I do remember that episode now. I want to go and watch it to kind of get the full extent of that conversation. But I do remember like that back and forth of Warren being very much like the hip hop representative, right? Where he has very strong opinions about rap and just like what is good rap or the execution of rap or how someone is trained in rap to get to that point where they can perform it, right? So
why I thought it was like an interesting conversation was because Doug brought up the point of, well, what happens when you switch concepts and you all of a sudden you need a rap section? And Warren's answer to that was like, just have one of your vocalists do a rap verse. And I was like, exactly. The
most musically inclined person to do the music part.
Yeah.
Crazy. No, you're right. No, that's so cool. It actually makes me think about like, I don't know if you know this group called Billlie, Christine or Subini. She's a content creator now, but she was a former member of that group. And she's Korean American. She does not rap, but her company told her, "Oh, now you're the rapper because she speaks English." This group disbanded a long time ago. Yeah, it's like a Gen 2 group, but she did a vlog one time talking about it. It's like, yeah, I didn't rap, but they told me to rap because I spoke English. I think that's like, it's very reflective of kind of the direction of K-pop in that mid 2010s, where it's like, we need a rapper on every song, and we got to figure. We won't train you, but we'll just ask you to do it eventually. It's like, okay, great. But yeah, it does feel like things have shifted now, where there's a lot more attention to detail as far as training rappers. But no, I think that's a very it's a very time capsule conversation of what K-pop did look like, even like 4 years ago, right? As they were thinking about starting the show. So no, that's really cool, man. Any other moments from the show that really stuck in your mind that said like, hey, I want to be part of this community? And you know, what have you seen throughout the community as far as helping to grow your interest and love for K-pop, and how has that helped you become a fan?
I would say, what have I seen? I would say getting involved with, I've tuned into a couple of the live streams on Twitch that are really cool. Like, you know, whether it's Warren catching up on songs they missed or doing like a tier or something. Just kind of getting involved with like the live community and chatting with people in Discord has been really cool. I would say like one of the things that I actually get involved with is like live music reactions, like when videos drop and people are like, you know, popping off in the chat, like as a video is like premiering and everyone's kind of just throwing their opinions and it's an absolute mess. Recently I got involved with that for the Pink Venom music video, and it was something. That was kind of the hottest mess I've seen so far. And but that kind of stuff is really fun for me. I love having discourse and conversation and like conflicting opinions with people, because I love to see what other people are thinking, which is why I think I end up coming back to the podcast in general so frequently, is because a lot of times I don't agree with a lot of the gang's opinions on songs, and I think I prefer it that way.
Wow, that's kind of an enlightening moment for me to kind of think about, right? Well, I got a question for you then. So sure. With the way that K-pop kind of is as far as fandoms, and it does skew a lot younger as far as people's emotional development, media literacy, and their ability to kind of navigate the internet. it does feel like you are a very high functioning person. How are you kind of able to emotionally separate when you don't agree with an opinion? And are you, and it seems like you have, like, how have you been able to kind of stop yourself from falling too deep into like the parasocial relationship between overly loving K-pop, becoming a stan, and just being like, I like K-pop just fine. It doesn't affect me personally, but I'm going to say and listen to all these kind of crazy thoughts and opinions about K-pop. So kind of where do you stand emotionally with your experiences online with K-pop and engaging with people?
It's a good question. Well, first of all, I'm 30. So I don't have, I kind of like, that doesn't really affect me for anything. I don't really have much that's like taking up my entire life to like stan a group or to have like all these alt Twitter accounts where I'm posting about groups 24/7. I just don't have the time. And that's probably what keeps me from diving too deep. Having like, a full life, family, job, all that kind of stuff. So it's enough. There's enough time for me to be interested and have it be like one of my main hobbies. And, I collect albums. So doing that is a cool hobby for me. Other than that, I don't know. I stay off of K-pop Twitter. It's kind of a mess. And I try to stay away from Reddit where like, people will try to vilify everything and make big problems out of nothing. And I don't know. When you kind of like separate yourself from where I think a lot of the community is toxic, then you don't really see it, and it's not really a problem,
Yeah, that's a healthy way to navigate the internet, right? Um, Kind of like following up on that. How, I guess, how did you develop media literacy? Kind of understanding the gives and takes of being on the internet. I know it kind of came naturally with the fact that your personal life does take up the majority of your time, so you're not able to commit yourself emotionally and psychologically to the internet. But did you have a period in the 2010s where you're like, wow, the internet is rough? And then how were you able to kind of intellectualize and separate yourself personally from the things that are happening on the internet?
I think that, yeah, I definitely did have a time where I've had times where I've gotten too involved. And that's whether that's like joining a bunch of subreddits or following a bunch of stan Twitter accounts, and like moments where I've dove a little deeper than I should have or realistically like wanted to, and I get burnout. It'll hit me. I'll log on to Twitter or I'll log on to Reddit or something, and I'll just get hit with a wave of a bunch of stuff that is like, oh my god, this is too much. There's too much going on. I don't want to see this. This is not interesting. This is crazy. So there's been multiple times where I've just gotten completely burnt out from internet culture, whether it's K-pop or anything else. I mean, I'm into other types of music and in video games and other hobbies as well. So it's not just K-pop. It's definitely just like if you overconsume, you will get burnt out. So it's a matter of controlling yourself so that you don't get to that point, because it's important when you have a hobby that you really like to not self-sabotage. So it's self-control, I guess. Long story short, it's self-control of like knowing how deep you should dive into hobbies and communities, and putting a little bit of a limit on yourself so that you can still find enjoyment in it and want to go back and keep reaching for more and keep enjoying what you like. It's definitely something that's hard to balance, but it's something I've definitely burnt out in a lot of different hobbies. So it's something I've learned to kind of control.
You said enjoying what you like, which is kind of my motto for just like anything on the internet or just any hobbies, right? In general, your interest. To what degree do you feel like you enjoy your interest, your hobbies, more when you include other people, when you kind of communicate in a way that is inclusive, or when you see the opposite side of that, where people are kind of just talking to talk kind of thing, not specifically naming anyone on the community, but I will say there are strong opinions that I feel like if they didn't know that they were on a server, I could have sworn they're just talking into a vacuum and they think no one else is listening. I guess like how, well, first of all, do you let those things emotionally affect you? And then how are you able to kind of not engage in that type of behavior for yourself?
With that behavior, do you mean sort of like talking into the void?
Yeah, it kind of feels like people are kind of saying things just to say it without the understanding that there is a consequence or there's another person that is going to read this, right?
Okay. Yeah. Uh, it's gonna sound like a little bit of a cop out. I just don't really say much, which is like what you. One of the first things you said is like, "Oh, you never really talked to me before. You don't really see me too often." I sort of, I don't want to say on purpose, but I don't want to say things that will upset people just because I have an opinion, or get into arguments with people or instigate anything. So for the most part, I kind of just, I don't know, I talk when people talk to me, or I talk when I have something to share with the community, or maybe some insight to give. But for the most part, I kind of just, I have my opinions that I share with my friends in real life that, I love just having people over and then queuing up like 15 K-pop music videos that came out in the past 2 months and just showing them, oh, here's what you missed. Here's what you missed. This group member did this. Oh, this girl just left this group, or oh, they just won this award. I love kind of just like information overloading people. Online, I think that translates a different way, especially if you don't know people well. And that's something that I have kind of just tried to steer clear of and be a little more careful with. As much as I do love talking to people and like finding communities and having really good conversations, it's for me, it's always been like in person with people, like having a drink or like just getting some pizza and watching K-pop has always been like my ideal. Let's just BS about K-pop. This group, blah blah blah. I don't like this song. I think this group needs to change concepts. That's the kind of stuff that I kind of keep in my personal conversations.
Yeah,
And then I don't really face that many problems with people or confrontation because I don't really put out offensive opinions.
yeah, no, I like that you bring it into the real world, right? Because there is a social cost or a social outcome when you're engaging with someone, either face to face or over a call, or just speaking to someone and hearing a voice in return, right? Where I think the internet is fantastic. I think it's helped a lot of people over the past 2 years over the pandemic, especially during lockdown. It's helped kind of grow K-pop to what it is today. But at the same time, I also feel like there's a large disconnect with the social component of K-pop that was exacerbated because of the pandemic. And sometimes I feel like there's just a lot of tone deaf discussion, right?
I agree. It's hard to feel like you're having a meaningful conversation with people a lot of time, rather than just talking in a person's ear and it goes out the other.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of love about the show, right? Because if I didn't know Doug, and he just typed out some of the things he says, it actually kind of sounds like, if you just read it, it does feel a little abrasive. But then, like, if I'm hearing him on Twitch, it's like funny. It's like, haha, that was good. Like, I don't agree, but I can agree to laugh, or I can agree to enjoy what you said and how you said it, right? Or same thing with Warren, especially with Warren. Like, he'll say some stuff. It's like, wow, that was crazy, but it's really funny, and I feel like I know you, so there's a social exchange, right? Where I can actually like hear your tone of voice, see what you mean about it, and it's not there's no malice, there's no malicious intent. It's just he's just kind of speaking to kind of let you into his thought process, right? And that's what I kind of love about the podcast.
Right. And Warren, so you understand the way that he's saying things is supposed to be interpreted in a certain way, and you get the context and you get how he's saying things. Where, if Warren were to take all of his opinions and say, like, 75% of songs are trash just in a text channel, you'd be like, wow, this guy sucks. oh, why do I want to listen to anything Warren says? He says every song's bad. But if you listen to the, podcast, you're like, oh, he's, playing it up a little bit, or it's lighthearted, and they're diving into it a little bit, and he's got reasons that, oh, it's sarcasm. So there's so much you miss when you just do everything over text channel.
Yeah, social context is like everything, right? And yeah, it's just kind of circling back to like why I have you on the show is just I haven't talked to you before, and this is incredibly illuminating to just hear you think about the world and the internet, and it honestly enriches my life and the way I think and see things. So yeah, I just gotta thank you for just like being so honest and genuine about just like everything that you experience. So
yeah, for sure. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we wax poetically just about the internet, and just like we could do an entire like course on like psychology of like the internet, but we do have some K-pop to get to. So let's talk about some songs and some groups. Some I wouldn't say one of them is a little lesser known. So we're gonna start with CRAXY. So I didn't know. Well, maybe I didn't know, but I forgot that Undercover came out in August 15th. And I saw that Requiem did release on September 8th, and thought like, oh, this is their title track release. It is not. But we're going to talk about this album as a whole, and kind of what we found in our research for CRAXY. So the album is Who Am I? The title song is Undercover, released on August 15th. We've got a Requiem. It's a B-side music video. I'm going to throw it to you first. Ervtron, which song do you want to talk about? And what are your overall thoughts and feelings and new discoveries about CRAXY that you found over the past few days?
CRAXY is an interesting one, man. I didn't know much about them. I remember, what was their comeback? It was Gaia, I think, that had like an 8-minute music video that was really, I don't want to say off-putting, but I was like, okay, I don't know if we're drawing in a whole bunch of new fans when we hit people with an 8-minute video, but okay, let's see where it goes. But I really liked Gaia. I thought it was good. I actually have liked most of their comebacks so far, but I've been kind of listening from afar. So diving into Who Am I has been my first like real deep dive into CRAXY. And yeah, Undercover, I guess, was the title track, but it turns out they're actually releasing a music video for every song on this mini album, if you didn't know. Starting with Undercover, and then I think they're going down the list. I think one of them, they said, is an animated video for their fan song. And their song Real is the only one on the EP that is not canon to their lore. So I found all this out watching an interview they did, I think, on SoundK yesterday, which was all super recent. So that was interesting to learn that to begin with. It was like, okay, we're 6 music videos, 5 music videos. That's a lot. And then, I guess I'll start talking about Requiem a little bit. The song, I think it's a good song. It's not my favorite on their EP. I like a lot of the things they did with the instrumentation in the verses. I think it has like kind of like stop and go instrumentality in it, and it sounds pretty cool. The chorus loses me a little bit, and then they hit you with the YG special, the Teddy Festival Trap ending, and I'm still undecided on if that ruined the song or saved it for me. But I'm curious to know what you think about Requiem, because I definitely have some things to say about the video, but I would like to hear what you think on the song first.
I'll start with the end. That, chanty music festival took me out. That's where I'm at with that one. I think it's an interesting song. If I'm thinking about it as, I came into the song thinking this was a title track, which
Okay.
I may or may not have, then I think it was a really bold creative choice because it is really different than what a lot of K-pop sounds like right now. The industrial effects are pretty cool. It does have a little bit of a rock element to it. There is a bit of future punk, future trap kind of in the song. And it's very theatrical. And I think that plays well into, even if you don't know the lore, it sets you up to want to learn more, or at least to allow the music video to tell you that story, right? Whether or not the music video does that is another question. I also think that title Requiem was played off really nicely in the creative design of this entire package between the song and music video. So just looking up the definition of Requiem on Google, there's two definitions. One of them talks about mass or like a religious service, and that allows kind of a soul to rest, right? The other definition is a token, an act or token of remembrance. So both kind of playing into what this music video represents and kind of what the song represents, because there is a feeling of religious undertones to the song, which is the way that the girls sing, kind of the harmonizing that gets under your skin. For me, I like that part. And the fact that the beat is a little bit jarring really kind of pushes and pulls where my head's at with this song, right? I think I still have a hard time listening to the song on loop, but I can come back to it and think like, okay, this was a pretty creative, bold choice of them to use this song, right? Again, if this was the title track, I'd be like, whoa, that's kind of crazy. I don't really know about this group, but the fact that it is a B-side music video, part of their lore as a whole, I think to me that makes it a success, right? Because it's not just the only song that has a music video. Right. But let's talk about the music video. What did you think about all the imagery and the setting? Kind of a dystopian future, but some weird, fantastical moments as well.
Yeah, I think you touched on it pretty well with what you're saying, how Requiem fits the concept really well. I think the sets all made sense. The styling was pretty good. There was definitely some things that I could point out like visually with the music video. As far as like their editing and VFX. I guess I have a couple criticisms to say.
Please do. I probably have similar notes.
Yeah, and I don't want to. You know, I know they're from a smaller company. The VFX. They're if you're looking, they're rough, and that's okay. But they put so many VFX in that I like couldn't get away from like paying attention to them just looking really wonky, especially in some scenes. And other than that, I'm sure you noticed the whole blue filter thing over like sections of the music video, right?
The liquidification.
Yes. Did you see what that was? Or like why they did that?
No, I've watched the music video like 5 times, maybe about 5 times. I could not figure out like thematically what that was.
Cool. I've got all the info for you.
Perfect. Perfect. CRAXY professional lore advisor here. All right, go.
Yeah.
For
So
it.
this is actually not lore. So I was curious. I was like, there's no way that they did all this cinematic stuff and put in, you know, they did this Requiem concept. There's no way they're just throwing a blue water filter over these scenes, right? Like there's stuff going on here. There's no way they're just throwing that filter over. So I'm like, okay, let me figure out what's happening here. So I'm going through the comments and boom, first thing I see, there's a pinned comment from a guy who's basically saying, I'm sure you've all noticed the blue filter over scenes of this music video. It's due to one of the members, Karen's braids, who were in the video, and they didn't want to have a cultural appropriation issue. So they decided to blast over those sections of the video with this blue filter, just completely ruining the shots because they said they shot this a year ago and they did not have enough B-roll or other footage to impose there. So this is the CEO on his personal channel commenting, basically saying like, yeah, I'm sorry we had to, you know, cut stuff in and just censor these parts because we decided to give this member braids. It was kind of like an unbelievable thing to see, because I even went onto this guy's channel. I'm like, there's no way this is actually legit. Like the company's CEO commenting on their video to explain this. So I go onto this guy's channel, and their company's CEO is an Indonesian family vlogger with like over 1 million YouTube subs. And they're just a family channel, and the family owns CRAXY's company and owns CRAXY. And that was a very odd moment for me. Maybe one of the weirder discoveries in like new K-pop for me.
This story is amazing. Where was the coverage for this story?
Right. So when you're thinking, oh, what's this blue thing? Does it have anything to do with Requiem, or like, what is it? No, this is just their censor because they gave a member braids.
That's incredible.
It's absolutely wild. Yeah, you go onto this dude's channel, it's just pages and pages of family vlogs, and then there's like a couple hidden scattered in there that it's like explaining CRAXY Gaia lore randomly.
Man, this needs to be a story somewhere. What? All right, first of all, shout out to the company for making that decision. Yes, sometimes things get overlooked in the entire process, and this is a very clear understanding of why it's important to have people kind of double checking things. But at the same time, it's like, if you're a small company and you just don't have the resources, you don't catch it. And the fact that they admit that this music video was shot a year ago, we can't go back and reshoot it. So here we go. We're just going to do this.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like they're bad on definitely not having enough B-roll footage just for a couple parts. Or, you know, you can kind of like say like, oh, well, you know, you should have had some backup stuff, or you should have been able to put some B-roll. But I do have to say, like, I respect them saying like, oh, well, we're not going to release that part, even though we don't have the stuff to fix it. So like, our bad, we're going to, you know, just come forward and be like, we're sorry. This is why this happened.
Yeah.
We're not trying to offend anyone. Hopefully you guys understand. And from what I saw, I did like check the replies to his comment and like the stuff around it. Everyone's very supportive about it. Everyone seems to be on the same page. Like, yes, right decision. Good job. Thank you.
This makes me like them so much more. Like, holy crap. I guess I like CRAXY now. What?
Yeah.
I thought we were going to talk about lore, because this group has a lot of lore. They were doing a very similar Luna thing with each member kind of getting their own release to start. And then they're doing kind of a trilogy, like a four-part quadrilogy for this release. I have it here. It is supposed to be the CRAXY universe. So 002, which is the mini album that came out earlier this year, Who Am I, which is the mini, and then End of Game is going to come out in October. But, you know, we can go into real world things and talk about the fact that like CRAXY legitimately had to post a video with a blue filter that had nothing to do with the creative process. And it was just to make sure they addressed kind of an error in the process.
I'm not a lore guy for any, even like my favorite groups, not a lore guy. So this is what I have to come with, all this like weird real life info.
The real life info is far more fascinating to me at this present moment in time. This is kind of amazing. I too am not a lore person. I cannot follow. But I do like when there's a through line, right? There's a musical through line or a concept, a visual through line.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, this is far more fascinating than lore. As far as Requiem goes, I think this song fits in with a playlist that could have Dreamcatcher on it. I think that's where I kind of land with this one. It's a bit different. It's not exactly Dreamcatcher, but there's enough elements to it where it's like, okay, if you want like a different spin on this genre, this style of music, Requiem itself kind of fits that. If you want a different group that's attempting this sound, right?
Yeah, they're definitely in that alley. And I would say, you know, I'm probably going to keep bringing them up. They are very Pixie adjacent
Mm.
in their concept and genre. Like that kind of like darker, kind of like you said, it has a little bit more of like a rockish or like a sort of a grungier pop kind of thing going on. Pixie sits in that pocket too. I would maybe even say like some of like the Billlie stuff, like a little bit in that darker EDM-ish kind of thing. So yeah, Requiem, I think it's a good song. I just it lost me a little bit on the video. One other thing I did want to gauge you on was something that I pay attention to. Not really as like something that I judge groups for or anything, but it's just like something fun that I like to kind of pick out and think about is when groups, especially groups that don't have any native English speakers or like strong English speakers, I always like to look at like how their English is written in the songs and if it's written grammatically correctly or kind of all over the place. Or it's super cringe, or I always like to pay attention to like how much English they're putting in songs and how they're writing it. I do want to commend them for whoever was in charge of lyrics for Requiem. It's very well done. It makes sense grammatically. It's all actually done pretty well, like better than I would imagine for a group of their size and um linguistic ability.
That's a good call out. And I think that has to also do with the musical ability of the group in general. I think there are three rappers that kind of stand out as far as having the English parts. It's Wua, Hijin, and Corinne. Um, I don't know if it's just a language thing where they're just able to kind of spit out like so many words because they're rappers. But I think that's a good call out as far as the English and the way it's composed within the song. Then it makes sense. It's like loosely tied together between kind of like the rappers and the English that's spoken, because I do feel like that's where a lot of the English comes in. But yeah, I think musically this group is actually like pretty good. Like they've got a lot of skill and a lot of talent as far as the different the variety and the way that they perform their songs.
I was impressed. I was watching their Sound K interview they did with Ashley Choi. Is that her name? Ashley from Ladies Code.
I'm a big fan. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, great. I was watching the interview they did with her, and I'm like, I've never watched an interview with CRAXY before. They are adorable, and they do not give off the energy that their music has. Like, as a group, they are so bubbly and high energy, and especially, I think her name is Karen, right?
Yeah.
She has like one of the highest voices I have ever heard. For like a speaking voice, and then she starts rapping, and it's like, oh my god, what happened?
Just wait. So I know nothing about the group outside of just the music. So she sounds like just like a very bubbly, happy, high pitched person. Is what you're telling me?
Absolutely. Yep.
Her raps are like fire in like 3 songs on this album.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
All right.
I highly recommend checking out that interview, because I was like, cannot be the same group. They look like they should be like a bubblegum Nugu group. This is crazy. They do the performances in that show, and they sound great live. They are actually very talented. They sound very good. They performed Undercover and Requiem.
Nice. Yeah, it does show. I would say even if you just pay attention to the small details of the songs, you can definitely hear tones that aren't overly synthesized or modified, right? So yeah, we talked a lot about CRAXY, a lot more than I expected. Real quick, what is your favorite song on Who Am I, the album?
Tough choice. I'm gonna go with Real.
Nice. Okay. Go into it. What about Real stands out to you?
It's just got this dated pop feel, and I don't mean that in a negative way at all. I actually mean that in a really positive for me, because if you're talking like what's my greatest of all time pop era, I'm going like Carly Rae Jepsen, old Ariana Grande kind of stuff. like that, like I said earlier, like that mid 2010s stuff, and it just has like a really, I don't know, kind of like future disco bouncy chorus with like, you know, it's not a lot going on, but it's just, it groups, and it kind of is like one of those like low key club bangers, and it's definitely different. It stands out on the album. It doesn't really fit into their lore. They said on their interview that it's the only song on there that isn't a part. It's just a song they wanted to do to show off their more feminine side and like their more fun side. So that kind of got me interested in it, and it was, you know, it's a cool song to hear them have fun with, and it just changes up when I'm listening to Who Am I over and over again. You know, you kind of get an idea of where the concept is and where the theme of the album is, and it flows together really well. And then Real hits, and you're like, oh, cool, like this is bumping, this is fun. We're shifting it up a little bit. So I would say from listening to Who Am I, Real sticks out a lot, and I've grown to like it a lot. And I would say Lion is my runner up for second.
Those are my top two songs of the album too. We talk about Real for a second. So yes, I'm a sucker for house music, and the song does a really nice job of starting off much lighter than the rest of the album, and it gives you hints that it's going to be a house song without like giving it away too much. And it jumps right into kind of like the big room sound. I'm just like, yep, this is it. This is the track that I like. I like the fact that it's very much a switch up from kind of the dramatic side of the album. It's, I guess, to their degree, light. I don't think it's a light song specifically, but I think it's a lot lighter than the rest of their music in this album.
Yeah, in comparison, for sure.
Yeah, and I too also wrote down it's a bit dated, but in a good way. Literally quoted on my notes. So it's right there, same wavelength. Yeah, no, shout out to you, man. Yeah, Real, Lion, really fun songs. Really a different side than what the two music videos have been so far. So yeah,
Lion is so fun. I was listening to Lion, I was like, man, if this isn't like a thrown away Super M song, what is? This is so fun. That like that bass line in Lion is just, it grooves throughout the whole song. I had a really good time with Lion. It was a tough choice between Real and Lion.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. It does have a very like SM style,
yeah,
like bass to it. No, that's really good call. All right, yeah. So that was CRAXY with Who Am I? We're gonna keep going. So we've got a group that came out with an album at the end of August. We didn't get to cover it on the Kpop recap for August because it didn't come out yet. We're gonna talk about Billlie because I love this group. I adore this group. So we are going to kind of discuss what the crew talked about, go over the album a bit, and yeah, we're just gonna go right into it. So Ring My Bell, released on August 31st off of the album The Village of Perception Chapter 2. Ervtron, what are your thoughts on Ring My Bell and Billlie coming back with a rock concept this time?
Yeah. All right. Well, you're definitely way more familiar with Billlie than I am, so you're definitely gonna need to educate me a little bit on them. I will say that I have been a fan of all of their previous stuff. As far as I know, some of it was really polarizing. Especially, I think their debut song was definitely contentious for people. I thought Ring My Bell was done well, but not what I was expecting them to do. I thought after, was their last comeback Gingo Mingo?
Yep, that's the one.
I thought after that they would sort of just keep going with this like weird sort of noise genre that you kind of see popping up here and there a little bit more. I don't know. I Ring My Bell, it's a good song, but if you were gonna ask me, if you play that song for me and ask me what group it was and I had never heard it before, Billlie would be very far towards like the end of the list of groups, I would say. That being said, I think it's well done. The guitar solo at the end that's extremely long was interesting, like very good, but I was like, man, that's that's really going for a long time. And I have to assume that this kind of music is maybe piggybacking a little bit off of Tomboy and the success from that. I don't know if that's a hot take or something bad to say, but I don't mean it negatively. But yeah, it's kind of my general opinion on that.
No, I think you make a good point about piggybacking off of Tomboy, right? Because I think there was a point last year where TXT had the two emo rock songs. And I think the opinion or like the projection was that so many groups are now going to do punk rock music. Turns out no groups did. And then Tomboy comes out and then was orders of magnitude more, sorry, TXT fans, more successful in those two songs. If we're just looking at number, popularity, and just the fact that it's still on the charts. I think Warren was on Twitch and showed us the live charts last week and just said, yeah, Tomboy's still hanging around. So it does make sense that another group would make this attempt, right? And I think what separates this song from Tomboy for me, and it was mentioned on the show, is that it is very much far more a punk rock song than Tomboy is. And they lean into that character with everything, whether that's the visual aesthetic, the way the music videos formatted, and the way that the choreography is. I know Anita had a little bit of an issue with the fact that it's kind of a K-pop choreography, but I think it's still subtly done to the point where you're always in the headspace that this is a rock song, a punk rock song. As far as the song itself, I liked it at first. I still like the song a lot. But I can't ignore the fact that the entire album does a lot of different things. We'll get into it a little bit later, but I think right now, Billlie, their strength is the character that Warren describes as their quirkiness, right? Quirkiness with a little bit of horrorcore and just a little bit of a creepiness. They captured that really well with this song, I think. And if the intention and purpose was for them to have a lot of attitude, to be really quirky, eyeliner everywhere, punk rock attire from 2 decades ago, all great and styled really well, then I think they accomplished that. As far as singing and kind of the way that the members are portrayed, I think they do a nice job of giving everyone a part that works for themselves. I don't feel like anyone's overreaching or overstretching into the punk rock aesthetic. But I can't ignore the fact that the rest of the album highlights the members singing in a far different way, if that makes sense, right? So I think with all those factors kind of taking into account, I think it's a good song for this genre. I think it's the only song that sounds like this on the album.
By far.
And I think just in a vacuum, it's good. I think a lot of people will like it. I think it's general public friendly. It's going to play a lot into kind of the memory of Tomboy in a good way. I think people will just like this sound. And I think the comparison Warren made is that Japanese pop music has done this a lot with their idols. If Billlie made a whole album of this, I think that would have been like the next like ultimate step of really encapsulating this concept. But because I know like the rest of the music they have, it's just another way for them to express their weirdness and quirkiness. And I think that works too. But I don't think this is the best song on the album.
That's a good way of looking at it. I like that.
Yep. Let's get into the album. We're not going to do a full review, but we've got 6 songs here, all with this amazing naming convention that I feel like is very indicative and characteristic of Billlie, right? With just different symbols. It's there's like a poetic rhythm to like the word choices used in various sentences, and then parentheses everywhere. Pick a song. Which one stands out to you off of this album?
Talk about my favorite one on the album first. Be Rave, a song for Matilda. The first thing I do want to say is when you talk about Billlie being quirky, if you were judging them by song names, they're the quirkiest group out there. I thought I was misreading when I was listening to the mini album earlier. Like MacGuffins cannot be the name of this song, but turns out it is. Brave, I thought was really cool. It gives me, I want to say like it gave me instant Red Velvet vibes, like really smooth, highlights their vocals, different vibe. For me, coming from like what I know about Billlie, I really only know their title tracks prior to this, so hearing them do more of like an R&B style is a nice change of pace, and it's like, okay, I feel like I'm getting to know the members' voices and their capabilities a little bit better. It's really a pleasant listening song for me.
I love that you picked the song because this is, well, no, I don't know how to rank this song because I love all the songs. But this is the song that I feel like I have a personal investment in. Let's put it that way. So the song is written and produced by Say. She is an R&B artist. She has done K-pop-ish things in the past. She's been a musician for a long time. Over the past 2 years, she has written and produced a number of songs for a number of very well-known groups and artists. It's funny that you say Red Velvet because she has connections with SM. She wrote and produced Yippee Yippee by aespa off of Savage. And then before that, she did Good at Love for Twice off of Perfect World. And then before that, she did Bambi and Whippin' for Baekhyun.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So she definitely has that R&B inspiration with the way that she composes songs and the way she puts members into different vocal placings. This song for me was the one that was like, oh yeah, Billlie is a good singing group. They know how to like put the members into different spots where they can really elevate them as singers. And I don't feel like the past 2 albums have done that, at least as far as what I can remember. This is the first time where I feel like they're really pushing what I've kind of, what I said about Ginga Minga Yo a few months ago, as far as what direction I feel like Billie's going into. And I feel like they are going in the direction or projected to be kind of the reincarnation of Red Velvet. Maybe not exactly, but I think musically they're trying a lot of different things. They're doing a lot of weird, quirky, horrorcore things that I think you can definitely loop back into Red Velvet, Russian Roulette and Ice Cream Cake, and kind of that weirdness, while also being contrasted by the Velvet side of Red Velvet, right? And that's where Brave or Be Rave kind of falls under for me. It does a really nice job of being pop R&B, very nighttime music. It has kind of a sexy vibe to it, but at the same time, just smooth, right? It just makes you feel like they're playing into the genre really well. There is a choreography video for this, and I will say the choreo is very Say. So Say is a great dancer. She's a very well-accomplished dancer. And I don't think she choreographed this, but it does feel like it's something that she could perform. A lot of body rolls.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I also want to point out that it has a really cool spot that it sits in on the album as well. Like right after My B, I know we didn't talk about it yet, but it's a little more of an in-your-face song. And then, B Rave kind of dials it back and smooths everything out. And I feel like if you're listening to the album just front to back and then Ring My Bell hits, you're like, okay, Ring My Bell is like hitting hard. We're like high energy rock. I feel like it does a really good job of throwing you emotionally kind of like all over the place when you listen to it in full, which was, I have to assume, is part of their idea with having all these songs in with such different genres and different styles. So I just think that the placement of it just elevates the experience I had with listening to that song as well.
Yeah, no, there's definitely an intentional aspect to the way that the songs are numbered, right, or placed on the album. And it does play into kind of the world building of Billlie. Again, I don't follow lore. And Warren said this on the show. He likes it when lore isn't in your face, where it's just there and you're kind of experiencing it along with the music and the art. And that's what I feel like the track list kind of does, right? Where it says different things at each step of the way with different styles and genres of music, while also kind of taking you through a story that you don't have to do extra research for. And there's a bit of brilliance with that, with Billlie in particular. We can jump into My B, equals the birth of emotion. It opens kind of groovy. It's got a bit of a funk, like retro Like,
yeah, like a little bit like future bass kind of.
yeah. I love kind of the compilation of sounds that they're playing with the song, right? Where, like you said, future bass, a little bit of experimental. I would say a little bit of a hint of hyperpop, but not exactly there. But like very modern. I want to say aespa, but it's really not aespa. Like that's where I kind of land on it, because there are hip hop elements, but it's not like a hip hop song. And I think it does a nice job of, in a weird way, kind of sampling a lot of the other songs on the album while being a great individual song in itself. How did this song kind of hit you as being like the first song off the album?
It's attention grabbing. I don't have much more to say than other than like when those chords hit you in the beginning, and you're kind of just like, oh, that's funky. Like, oh, these are interesting. Like, where are we going with this? These are just sort of like jazz chords. Like, what's happening? I think it does a cool job building. I think the chorus is catchy. I don't know. I think it's just a good introduction. Like I said, it does a really cool job of kind of kicking off the album with like a good vibe, and then B-Rave brings it back, or maybe brings it back up. I just think it's a good first song, and it's catchy. I don't have much more to say than it's just an enjoyable to listen to song.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it on that one. Very catchy, great attention grabber as far as kind of being the first song off the bat, right? Well, let's talk about. So this will be the last song we talk about, but I think it's a very fitting song. We're gonna talk about MacGuffins. I don't know what symbol that is. It's the squiggly line. Approximation. Who's the Joker, question mark. So this one right here is kind of the reincarnation of Red Velvet as far as the red side of things, right? It's controlled chaos for me. It's a bit of a sequel to Ring X Ring, where Ring X Ring is really out there, right? It's just, I feel like with Ring X Ring, it's a shot of adrenaline, whereas MacGuffins, there's a good pace to the song. Again, it's got the quirky instrumental that also plays into kind of the quirkiness of their voices. I think there's very specific vocal tics in the song that are unique to the entire album that I don't think they've done anywhere else on this album in particular. And then the harmonizing right here is probably where it's most prominent, because it's playing into like the beat, right? Where the beat is just... the beat's kind of wild. What are your thoughts on MacGuffin? Who's the Joker?
You're absolutely right. You like struck a nerve when you said Red Velvet, because I'm like, oh my god, that's exactly what this is. This is just like a Red Velvet reincarnate. It's really cool. I think the specifically I liked the pre-chorus, where it kind of does a very Red Velvet thing, where it kind of pulls back and lets vocal harmonies kind of do their thing. And again, it's just like another, from somebody who hasn't really done a deep dive on Billlie, it's just another side for me to see for them, which is really good. I thought the rap verse in it is good. And like you said, the harmonies are really nice. I didn't know the group could sing so well, coming from their previous title tracks, and like how he said, like, they're going for quirky stuff and a lot of like noise music. And this is more controlled, like you said, and it gives them a lot of opportunity to shine vocally, which I think is like where I think that's obviously like where Red Velvet shines, right? Like, they're obviously insane vocalists, and a lot of their music is super, super chaotic, but it never gets away from you that they're insane vocalists. And I think this song encapsulates that really, really well.
Yeah. God. Yeah, I'm so glad that you also feel the same way. I agree in the sense of one. Wow, so many thoughts. I agree with the sentiment that their past songs have not showcased them as singers. I think it's very much character building over the first two mini albums, with songs that do a lot of things, right? Very experimental. I think Ginga Minga Yo was the most general public friendly, weird girl pop song. I think that's the character. You are now established in that world. You understand this is what they're going for. With a song like MacGuffins, now I'm like, oh, okay, now they're musicians, they're great singers, and they're put in places where they can all kind of excel, right? Haram is the main vocalist, and she does an excellent job as far as setting the tone for a lot of the songs. But I think Suki or Chuki and Sean got a lot of parts throughout this entire album, specifically here in MacGuffins, that allows them to sing at her level, which I did not think they had. Because there's some parts in the song where they're very much harmonizing, it's very clear. And then it drops into one person singing, but kind of in that same pitch where if you're not really paying attention, you would think that person is harmonizing with someone else, but it's just them. Haram has a lot of parts of that. Suki and Sean have a lot of similar parts. I'm just like, wow. So I guess they're all like musically inclined in this similar way, or at least directed in this way. And I think that's a really brilliant job of like how the song is constructed. As far as the rap, Sua is the one that is like very visually known as the rapper, but it's Seon who kills the verse in this song. She's the more prominent rapper in this song. I thought it was Sua for a second until I had to like look it up and like watch the lyrics video. Yeah, it is Seon. So you have two rappers that are incredibly fire in this group. So it just this song for me kind of showcases the breadth of talent and ability that Billlie has that I don't think was expressed in past releases. And this is the one that's kind of like, okay, now they're getting the opportunity to play, to really showcase their musical abilities. So, man, yeah, this one.
So I'm curious. Do you think this should have been the title track?
Yes, to be honest. Like, this kind of goes back into like the rock aesthetic, right? Where I think Tomboy did a great job of establishing this could be incredibly successful. How do we double down into this genre where it's just the rock aesthetic? And I think they pulled it off really well. But because I listened to this entire album, because I know MacGuffins exist, because I know the spiritual successor of Red Velvet is this song, I would have loved this to be the title track.
I have to agree. I think this would have been a stronger title.
Yeah, because it plays into everything they've already set up as far as the character, the quirkiness, and I'm sure they can find a way to sneak in lore into like the visual aspects of the music video. But then it now showcases another side of them where they are able to kind of sing and perform. And I think that was a criticism on the main show where Doug wanted maybe a different arrangement with the chorus, where you have kind of Haram or the other singers getting their own parts. I think MacGuffins has a lot of that for all the members. So yeah, God, that's a great question. And now I want this as something, anything. Can we get a B-side music video, please?
Yeah. Fingers crossed for a B-side music video. Maybe it'll do well and they'll promote it. We'll see.
Yeah. Oh, God, man. Yeah, I am over the moon for Billlie. I really enjoy them. A quick aside, they released another like musical thing. Second time they've done this. It's the Village of Perception Chapter 2 original soundtrack from the end of the world.
Please tell me about this.
And the Awakening. Okay, so this is the second time they've done this. They did this for Chapter 1. It's essentially a score version of their songs, and then anything that was kind of released in between time. I think there are a couple songs from the previous release as well. And the way... Well, so let's start with world building. So the way that I see this is that they are acknowledging that there is a world with Billlie, almost a cinematic universe that we don't actually have, right? We don't have like a story video or like a short movie, but this would be the score for that if it did exist. Is how I imagine. Musically, this is like Studio Ghibli. I know that's not shouldn't be taken lightly, but if you really listen to like the pacing, the calm, and the way that certain songs kind of build, there are a lot of very like Joe Hisaishi type sounds within this soundtrack, and I'm just like, oh, I can listen to this like to kind of set the mood for myself, but then also like concentrate and work and like do things where I don't have to really listen, but I can just like be calm in the world. And yeah, I'm just surprised. Maybe I don't even know what word I'm trying to find here, but I'm kind of just amazed that Billlie has like the resources. Mystic Story has the resources to do something like this, because this is not like a throwaway thing that you just do. It's like, oh, we're going to make a soundtrack for something that doesn't exist, but your imagination and what we've set up should tell you it exists. It's like, what? And on top of that, it's good.
Yeah. So I want to say, like, I didn't know this was a thing, and we had talked earlier about talking about Billlie, and I'm like, okay, I'll give the new mini album a couple listens. So I go on and I click the newest release on their Spotify page, and I just click the first song, and I'm like, okay, this is an intro, first song intro, whatever, to the mini album, cool. And then it goes to the next song and the next one, and I'm like, wait, what am I listening to? This is not like a Billlie mini album. And it turns out that this was the most recent release, and I was listening to this, and I was like, I don't know what I'm listening to. This is great. And I just listened to the whole thing, like, for however long it took. Yeah, I was like, you know what? I need to listen to the actual songs, but I'm just gonna let this ride for a little bit. This is really cool. And I had no connection to any of the other songs, so I'm just listening to it at face value, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is really, attention grabbing, and it goes through all sorts of ups and downs. It's really cool. And you telling me that there's nothing that it goes to is kind of mind blowing, because it makes me wonder, one, was there something it's supposed to go to, or is there something it's going to go to, or is this part of their quirkiness where it's like, hey, here's the soundtrack, the lore, make it up in your head. Think about it yourself, because you're saying this is the second time they've done this, and that's kind of it's kind of blowing my mind right now.
Yeah, no. So that's the thing, right? It's the way that they execute lore. It's not explicit, right? Where, of course, it's like very visually clear that there's lore, but there's nothing where it's like, oh, watch these 10 videos of all these connecting storylines and then to get to the end point, right? It's like, no, just these things exist in and of themselves, and it's up to you to kind of put your imagination together of how they exist. And at least as far as my interpretation of it, and I think that's what really, really captures me about Billlie. I was already into this album, and then when I checked back this week, because this released on September 8th, I was like, what is this? Oh, they did this again. Oh, I love this. I'm listening to this for 3 days straight. And that's what I did. So, yeah, man. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad that was kind of like a nice shock to your system as you're going into the new Billlie album.
Yeah, it's definitely going to keep my attention to their future stuff a little bit closer.
Yeah, man. All right. Well, that wraps up kind of our music discussion for this week. We kind of went long, but you know what? We got a lot of good things out of this conversation today. All right, let's do some closing thoughts. So, Ervtron, yeah, it seems like you are the professional concert person as well on the server. Oh, no. You are another one. So what are you looking forward to for the rest of the year? What other shows do you have on the calendar?
I just want to keep going to more concerts. I'm going to go see ITZY in New York. Side note on that, I had a fan call with Ryujin last week, and that was some wacky, never thought it would happen, like handshaking nervousness. So I've like hard committed to like, okay, well, I'm gonna spend a lot of money to go see ITZY because I feel an emotional attachment to Ryujin now. I'm fighting for Blackpink tickets on Tuesday when they go up. I have the pre-sale stuff registered, so I'll be sitting at my computer refreshing like crazy to try to get tickets for that, to maybe one or both dates in New Jersey. And those are my concerts for the rest of the year. I just missed Sunmi. I was really sad about that, but and I as far as other things, I want to hopefully meet up with some of the community people at the concerts in Pennsylvania, Jersey, New York, whatever, because I know at Luna there was a handful of people in our community that like found each other and met up, and that seemed really cool. So I would like to reach out and maybe hang out or meet up with some community people, maybe at the ITZY or Blackpink concerts in the future.
Yeah, freaking the SojuTalk Nation people. All right, we're gonna put that out there. We're gonna put you on blast to be like, hey, Ervtron's at these shows. Find him, please. You all need to be together and celebrate SojuTalk and take photos and stuff. So that's what happened for KCON for us. There was about 4 of us that met up. We hung out during the convention, and then we hung out before and after the concerts each night.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, man, it was a blast. Just really cool. And everyone vibes so well. So definitely worth meeting people from the community. So yeah, we'll get your name out there. We'll get everyone to find you.
I'll pop in. I'll pop into the Discord. I'll make my annual appearance.
Hey man, whatever appearance you do make is valuable, and it's important, and it's definitely a time that we'll cherish. You know, seeing you just grace us with your presence for sure. For me, I've got Nikki coming up on Wednesday. I think by the time this comes up, I will have just returned from her show. This will be going up on Thursday. And then I'm seeing her again on Saturday because I live 45 minutes between both venues in north and south directions. So one's in San Francisco and one's in Santa Cruz. So I'm going to see her twice.
That's awesome.
And after that, I think it's DPR. I think it's DPR is next after that. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. And Camp in LA. The music festival with all the people.
Oh, I saw that. That looks crazy.
It's freaking insane. Man. Yeah, I don't really know what to think or like how to wrap my head around that, but I will be there.
I don't know what the ticket buying process to like that or KCON or any of those like huge festivals that seem to always kind of end up in LA are, but that seems like an absolute nightmare to try to like get in like, good seats or like tickets to what you want to do.
For Camp, I think because it's new, it was pretty straightforward. It wasn't too difficult.
Okay.
So it takes place at the Rose Bowl, so stadium. And then there's different levels of seats. So there was general admission in the bowl, so on the grass, and then there's different tiers moving up the stadium. I think the cheapest ticket.
That's a huge venue.
Yeah, the cheapest ticket is like $75 at the very top, but honestly, at a certain point, it's like diminishing returns. Just like get a seat, and you'll probably get the same angle and view, right? So I think if you did want to attend, it's pretty inexpensive, considering the fact that there's so many people performing.
That sounds cool.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Did you see the recent announcement that they're doing the next SM Town Live in the United States?
No, when did this announce? What?
Today. I don't know details. I just saw that they're doing an SM Town Live in the US. That's all I know so far, but I will wish you a good luck with that.
You know, what if it's on the East Coast?
I'm going to try to go.
What if it's on the East Coast, you know? And then I feel like with all the things happening in the West Coast, you guys get one. You guys should get this one. Is what I'm thinking. It's like
we need something to make up for no KCON New York.
Yeah, that was kind of lame, honestly.
But if there was an SM Town live in the US, and if they're going to do it in LA, I will go. I will try to go.
Man,
that's one of those like I'll full commit to that.
Yeah. Man, all right. Well, I'll keep you posted. I told myself I was gonna be better about not spending money, but oh my god. Because that means Girls' Generation is going to be there.
That's what I'm going to say. I was like, you're going to pass up seeing Taeyeon?
God, all of them, God, Tiff and Sooyoung, and just, oh man, words are so hard now. All right, brain is like fried. No, yeah, all right, we gotta figure that one out. But yes, thank you for now blowing my mind for like the 100th time today. All right, Ervtron. Amazing time having you on, man. Like honestly, like this was crazy cool. Yeah. No, this was amazing. I really do appreciate having you on, and yeah, we'll definitely do this again like real soon. I feel like I told everyone that, but at the same time, like there's just certain guests that I know. It's like, all right, I think because I like to cover like weird girl groups, just like girl groups that are like off the chart sometimes, and it's like, you know what? I think I got my go-to guy to ask to come join me on these weird adventures that I go on.
I would be honored for that. If you find a group that's getting like 50,000 views on their music videos or less, I'm probably listening to them. So if you want to cover anything obscure, I can definitely be your go-to guy for that.
So you are my hipster partner in crime. That is it. We are the hipster choices. We only listen to hipster music. That is fact right there.
I love that.
No, that's God. All right. I have you down for sure. All right, man. We're gonna sign out. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the Soju Sessions on the SojuTalk Nation podcast feed. Subscribe on YouTube, follow on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or wherever you listen to podcasts, and continue the conversation on the SojuTalk K-pop podcast Discord. For Ervtron, I'm Crispy, and this has been the Soju Sessions. Bye, everyone.